Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a new tier list and also updated guide for last Epoch with different classes and also different masteries. As you can see behind me, I have updated my previous tier list from patch 1.0 to patch 1.03 with several nerfs and also changes and also understandings to different classes and also skills. And if we have a look on the side, you can see various links and also different guides on different parts of the game, including a display of the replays of the build and also how it works, and also the leveling progress and also transitional builds for each of the build. So similar to our previous guide, in this video we'll go through the replays, the highlights of each of the top meta build at the current patch, and also what are my rankings and also reasons behind it for having those builds on the top of the ranking list. Now, if you guys haven't seen the previous guide, I definitely recommend you have a look. The link is over here, and this one will teach you how to use the links and also everything that's related to our mega guide list. So on the page 2, you can see this updated version. And let's get into the video. Now, personally, I like to learn top meta builds and also endgame build, so this way I can know if I'm going to play a class and also a different character, what I'm getting into in the late game. So with most of my guide, at the start of the video, I'll provide you guys with a demonstration of what it's like for the higher endgame. And you can see the videos over here. So let's start with the Marksman. I have updated the XXL that if you click onto this, you'll come to a timestamped version of the gameplay of the characters. And over here, my top ranking character for this particular patch and also for the current season is still the Marksman. Now currently we have two versions of the Marksman, and what you guys are seeing now is we have updated the Lightning Marksman with a ward build to 2000 plus corruption, and you can see the abilities and also the functions at work. This build is extremely mobile. This build deals tons of AoE damage. This build also deals insane amount of single target damage against the boss. So what I'll do is I'll fast forward a little bit so you can see this build moves down the echoes and also the maps in very fast. And here, if I jump forward to the 2000 corruption boss, you can see that this build is incredibly high damage against a single target, and within seconds the boss will disappear in front of you. Now we have updated this build for more survivability and also more endurance, because in the previous setup we were doing tons of more damage, but in return we were dying a little more often in higher corruptions over 1000 and also 1500. So the current update for the Warden build is available. We will be updating the health version of the build as well. So this way you guys have two variety of the build. If you don't like the Warden set, there is also the health set that will be updated very soon after this video. And if you guys haven't tried the Marksman, I really do recommend trying this one for the first cycle of last Epoch. I'm ranking the Marksman still at number 1 for me, and overall ranking is 10 out of 10 for me, simply because leveling is very fast, it's great for corruption, arenas, boss slaying, mobility, and you can even build this one tankier for the hardcore mode. Now in terms of the cost of the build, currently due to increased popularity among the players in the so-called Fortune and also in the Merchant Guild, the price of getting items for this build is getting higher and higher, so keep that in mind. I have started to make cheaper versions, and here I'm trying to give you guys cheaper setup for the build, but the cost of some of the high-end items are over 500 million. So this is why I'm highlighting this one. It is a medium cost to start off, but the cost of the high-end min and max for this particular build is very high due to its popularity. I think that is the only downside for this build at the moment. Now coming over to my second build of the meta. So currently we have learned a very powerful Runemaster build, and what I do is I take away the voice and you can see a demonstration of the Runemaster. This is a demonstration of 2200 corruption, and the Runemaster, similar to the Marksman, is incredibly powerful AoE spammer. Yes, you'll be shooting out fireworks, and you have tons of more survivability, and you have quite mobile while auto casting multiple spells. Yes, it does look like a lot of fireworks as you cast multiple Force Claw that auto triggers additional spells. The Runemaster doesn't really have a problem in terms of AoE map clear, as you can see over here, and it deals tons of damage map wide. It can hit up to 2 screams away, and the damage numbers are very beautiful. Now jumping over to the boss fight with 2200 corruption, you can see that the Runemaster against the boss, unlike the Lightning Marksman, it will be a little short in terms of single target damage. And this is compensated by the fact the Runemaster have so much warding gain that you can stand in front of the boss and take it down just because of how tanky, and you are constantly gaining more warding. So this is a tankier version for the endgame if you do want to push for higher corruption. And you can see it still takes down the boss pretty fast, and it's also gaining warding very fast. So this is by far one of my favorite build after learning the Marksman. Now in terms of ranking, I'm giving the Runemaster 9 out of 10. In terms of leveling, corruption, and rareness, it is top notch. It is a little short compared to the Marksman in terms of boss slaying. It also has great mobility, but unlike the Marksman, it actually gains increased damage as you become even more mobile. The Runemaster is decent in terms of mobility. You do have to learn the rotations a little bit with cold, fire, cold rotations for your Rutic invocation, but that works as well. In terms of availability for hardcore, this build is actually stronger because of its ward gaining potential and also survivability. Now there is also increase in attention and also in popularity with the Runemaster, so do be aware guys, the price cost of making this build is also medium to high. Could be slightly on the higher end, close to very high, because the Runemaster uses the red rings. And the red rings is also used by the Marksman and also multiple builds that is available currently in the meta. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Hey Matt, we have seen the Marksman and also Runemasters in the previous guide with the top 5 builds. And if you have a look here, yes, we had those. But over here we have some newcomers as well. Our next contestant coming over on the 3rd place is going to be the Wrathlord Necromancer. So let's come over to the replays, and yes, I have made the timestamp. Actually, I forgot to make the timestamp for this one. So here we'll be watching a demonstration of the Summoner build with the Necromancer, currently updated for over 2000 corruption, and this build has tons of warding gain. You can see right away at the start of the demonstration, after killing the Excel Mage, this build have over 60,000 warding. And the build itself is very interesting. You will be buffing up a super minion, and as you buff up this super Wrathlord, he can start to one-shot or two-shot everything on the map, and he will be feeding onto your other minions. As he feeds onto those minions, he will become stronger. Now the change up for this build in terms of high corruption is that the Necromancer will teleport, and while keeping the minion stationary, this particular Wrathlord will become a station turret that deals a lot of damage. The Necromancer itself will be gaining a lot of warding through killing enemies and also dealing tons of damage as he summons the Wrathlord next to her. Or him or her. And as you guys can see in the replays, the Necromancer is incredibly powerful, and the Wrathlord is basically one-shotting everything on the map with over 2000 corruption. Now jumping over to the single target boss fight, you can see that before the fight, our Necromancer is sacrificing a lot of minions, so the Wrathlord is gaining tons of damage. And as you can see over here, within seconds, that over 2000 corruption shade was taken down. I think it took the shade down in about 12 swipes. So it was dealing millions and also millions of damage even when the monster had tons of health and also defense. So this is a very powerful build, and in the latest guide I was showcasing 2 different variations. So a Necromancer friend that we're learning also had a build against the boss and also had a build against the echoes. And once you guys have understand the combinations of how to deal the most damage with Necromancer, yes, there's a combo. Once you learn the shotgun combo, and once you get yourself to some leveling, and also some items for the Necromancer, this build can be incredibly powerful to match some of the top builds in the meta. And this is also a Summoner's build. So in terms of overall ranking, I'm giving the Necromancer 9 out of 10 for the Wrathlord. In terms of leveling, it is quite smooth. I was able to level the Necromancer quite fast with the latest update, and you can have a look over here. We do have a guide. You get a lot of minions, you don't run with them, and the minions will be auto-killing everything. And once you have your items, the Necromancer also becomes extremely tanky. So in that sense, it is a very well-rounded class that has mobility, single target, AoE damage, and also survivability. Now in terms of the cost of the build, yes, the price of the build is medium to high, and is also even very high, because you will be required to have some top-end gears crafted onto the boots and also onto the belt with experimental affixes. This can be very difficult if you're trying to follow directly onto the latest build. And I forgot to mention this as well, but make sure you guys check out some of the previous build before you move into the latest build, and this will help you to understand how to build and also how to combo the Necromancer. And you don't have to have the direct endgame build. You can use some experimental items at the start of the fights instead of crafting those directly. And those can be very RNG, as those boots and also belts don't come in high legendary potential. At the best 1 to 2 legendary potential for those items, which can be very hard to be crafting those for the late game. And because of the difficulty in crafting, I have put the Necromancer down onto the 3rd place of our top 5 build for this particular patch. Now coming over to the next build I want to highlight to you guys, and this one is actually a Lich build. Yes, let's come over to the video demonstrations. Now here we'll be watching a Lich going through over 1500 corruption. And right away you guys can see the Lich is actually also a summoner. Yes, I'm a big fan of the summoning builds, and the Lich is actually summoning zombies. And the Lich has great mobility. In terms of the zombies, it's an automatic build because you'll be summoning zombies, letting them kill themselves, automatically sacrificing the minions around them, and then summon even more zombies with your continuously cycle of automatic casting using unique rings and also passives. So the build is very smooth. You can pretty much just press one button and everything will flow. You will be required to have some experimental items which allows you to summon more zombies as you use potions, but that won't be a big deal unless you push for the very end game. So the build is very nice because you continuously summon zombies, revive them, and let them kill themselves, and then sacrifice them and do this repetitively to deal tons of damage. The build is very mobile, and you can see it also packs a lot of damage. Now for a better display of the damage for the Lich, here's a demonstration with 860 corruption fun as a player. And you can see that within a few seconds the zombies will explode as you pop your potions, you summon tons of zombies. It actually takes down the boss and also monsters super fast. One of the best thing about this particular build, yes, it did take down Julia in like 3 seconds. One of the best thing about this build is that you'll be using the rapier form. While in the rapier form, you have increased armor, increased resistance, and also increased damage. And once you're killed on the rapier form, you'll be revived back into full health. So this build is also very powerful to become survivable while you push for higher corruption. Now if you come over to my ranking, you can see that Lich is also ranked 9 or 10 for me for the current meta. Because it has a little bit lower leveling start compared to the Wrath of Necros, this is the only downside. After that, it is very good for corruption, good for arenas, great for bossing. It is decent in terms of mobility because it uses similar concept to blink around similar to the Wrath of Necro. In terms of the hardcore, it is very defensive, and it can be even better compared to the other builds if you do get the right gears. Now because the build itself requires you to be crafting again, summoning zombies with the Jungle Queen's belt can be very hard. So this is one of the reasons I rank this little lower compared to the Marksman and also the Runemaster. And compared to the Wrath of Necro, because we're watching a demonstration of 1500 corruption, it is a little lower over the 2000 corruption. But in terms of the overall comfortability and also easy to build, this build is actually quite smooth. And if you guys do want to plan to play the Lich, we have a leveling guide from Necro and also an endgame demonstration. It could be a little harder for you to transition in without the right gears, and Lich itself is not known as a summoner. But yes, we're turning a Lich into a Necromancer. And again, similar to the Necromancer, the downside is going to be those high-end gears crafted onto the items. If you guys want to play the Lich and if you don't have those items, make sure you use the experimental items before that, and this will allow you to have the best experience playing the Lich. Now coming over to our final class and also character that I want to highlight today, and this will be the Paladin. Don't worry guys, I'll briefly talk about the Warlock and also the Falconer, which has been nerfed in the current patch. So let's come over to some of the replays of the Paladin. Over here, we're learning and as a Paladin, and also the demonstration is over 2000 corruption. So briefly have a look at the Paladin. And why is the Paladin great for the endgame? Well, the first thing is you're gaining a lot of warding. You're gaining increasing warding as you go, and you become an unstoppable tank. And you have a lot of block chance, lots of armor. So this is one of the tankiest build out there if you want to push for higher matters and if you want to push for hardcore mode. Now there will be some requirements for this build to work, especially having an experimental FX crafted on the gloves, which I'll explain very shortly. Now you can see right away, this Paladin is not going to have the highest damage compared to the other builds, The other builds have survivability, damage, and also mobility. The Paladin over here has a bit of mobility, has tons of more survivability, but will fall short in terms of damage. So you can see our player going through over 2000 corruption over here, dealing pretty sizable AoE damage. But now if we jump over to one of the boss fight with over 2000 corruption, you can see the Paladin falling a little short in terms of single target damage. This is a downside with most of the survivability build, but the downside of being super tanky is that most of your stats are built to survive instead of building towards damage. And yes, you don't have to dodge any of the mechanics, you can take everything against the boss. This is a highlight and also a little downside because you won't be able to do as much damage compared to the other builds. But it is still a very powerful build if you guys want to try something different. It is also very good in terms of co-op. You can also make your allies and also friends super tanky and also super durable. Now before we jump over to the ranking for the Paladin, I really do want to come over to the Paladin builder. One of the biggest focus and also highlight I forgot to mention is going to be this particular set of gloves. And during the making of the Paladin guide, I forgot to mention that it is a must-have to have those particular gloves crafted with missing health gain as warding per second. Because our Paladin doesn't have a way of gaining warding, this is the only way of gaining warding out of all the gears. And this is how we can get over 50,000 warding very fast. And I really do want to stress out, if you guys want to play the Paladin, you can start with a non-unique item, just experimental item with this particular experimental affix. You don't have to worry about casting speed too much. In fact, I'm actually going to take that out because that can be a little confusing. So here you just want the experimental affix. This can be a tier 4, tier 5, tier 6. The best one will be tier 7 of course, and this is essential for the build. Now if you do not have the unique crafted with this particular affix, your stacking code resistance won't help. So the ideal case for the Paladin is to have these gloves crafted with those affixes, just with this experimental affix, and this will work wonders. You actually become the king of the hardcore, you become super durable, your damage won't be the highest, but you will still clear a lot of content in the game for the end game over 2000 corruption. Now briefly going through my ranking for the Paladin. Because the Paladin can be very dependent on those pair of gloves and also crafted, this is one of the reasons this is the lower ranking build out of the 5. And after that, leveling can be a little slow for the Paladin. In terms of pushing for corruptions, you can clear the map pretty quickly, and this is also the case for the Rainers. You're not going to be great against the bosses, and in terms of mobility, you are a little short compared to other builds. But you'll be very tanky and also very durable once you have those gloves and also a few healing stack items. So you can see our healing effectiveness is over 1300, and this in return will give you higher damage and also more survivability. Now if you guys do plan to play the Paladin in terms of co-op, we also have multiple guides from some of the top players in last epoch, reaching over 3000 corruption in terms of duo and also 4 players party. We also have a few guides to level the Paladin and also learning how to play the Paladins as a co-op character. So yes, one of the advantages of having a Paladin is that you can play Paladin as a co-op and combine with any of the top meta build, and then 2 of you can be very strong, unkillable while dealing tons of damage. Now before I finish the video, you guys can see that the Warlock and also Falconer are much lower on the tier list. This is because with the latest nerf to those classes with a bug fix, the Warlock is no longer gaining as much warding as I hoped, and at over 1000 corruption, you can see my post-nerf update for the guide. And the build can still work, but we are sacrificing one mobility skill compared to the other build, and we're dealing with having survivability issues. Because of that, I can still push for 1000 corruption with Warlock. You can push for 1500 with some of the best gears, but compared to the other builds, it will be falling short. And for those of you that want to see the latest update, I have updated the version after the nerf. Now this is also the case with the Falconer. The Falconer is dealing tons of damage in terms of AoE. It is an extremely glass cannon build. But with the latest bug fix, the Falconer has had a reduced radius by 50%. And for a glass cannon build that has lower radius means that you're more susceptible to dying. And this is not great. So this is why the Falconer has moved down to the lowest tier list, simply because the cost of building the Falconer is very high for the Ice Blast, our cold explosion Falconer. You can see everything will disappear on the map, which was great previously before the nerf. Now with a shorter radius, the Falconer does have problem with surviving, and this is why I don't recommend trying the Falconer unless you have some spare gold and also some of those items ready. Now I'm sure you guys can also see I have added Shaman, Beastmaster and also Void Knight to the list. In the future, we'll be finding and also learning different builds that takes us over 1000 corruptions for those classes and also for those mastery. So stay tuned. My goal is to cover every class, every mastery available with Last Epoch in this cycle. And this will give us one top meta build at least for each of the class and also builds. And hopefully we'll have multiple builds. So in the future, I'll be updating those classes and those gameplays for you guys to have a look and also consider making those as your alternative characters to try some different gameplay. Now hopefully you guys enjoyed this guide. If you come over to the first page, you can see that we have tons of different builds and also different guide and also different tools I have made for Last Epoch. And those will be constantly updated as we learn more builds and also updated as the patch changes with different nodes and also with different buffs and also with different nerfs. Now if you guys find my videos and also guides helpful and also want to support my passion in making more guides and also more videos for the Last Epoch and also more games to come like Path of Exile, please consider joining me on Patreon, and also here I have created my Ko-Fi page. You can also support me directly through donations, but supporting me continuously with one of those memberships will mean a lot for my future updated videos and to become financially sustainable so I can be continuing making videos for you guys and doing what I love the most, and that is to share and also teach our communities as I dive into different games and making more guides for you guys. And as you guys gonna see in the future, I'll have different ranks and also perk advantages and also special events and also special features for members like account reviews, perfecting the build for you guys, and also co-op time play, and also even special future videos for you guys on your special build for different members.